Good morning. This is David Barsamian, and this is not alternative radio, although that was the alternative radio theme, which you could hear every Wednesday evening here on KGNU at 6 p.m. But the reason we're started with the alternative radio theme is that we have David Harrington from the Kronos Quartet here with us live at KGNU in Boulder. Good morning and welcome to KGNU Boulder.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
David Harrington and the Kronos Quartet will be performing tomorrow evening at 7:30 at Chautauqua as part of the 10-day multiple events, Eco Arts 2006. And David, you're going to perform an unusual piece of music tomorrow evening, the Colorado premiere of Sun Rings. What's Sun Rings about?
Well, Sun Rings is an evening-length piece that was written for us by Terry Riley, one of our closest friends. And it's a piece that uses sounds recorded by the Voyager expeditions. And these sounds were recorded by an instrument that was developed by Donald Gurnett, a scientist from the University of Iowa. And Don Gurnett introduced us to the instrument and the sounds in his laboratory. And, in the year 2000, I got a call from Bert Ulrich, the arts program director at NASA, and his question to me was, would Kronos be interested in using some of the sounds recorded on the Voyager expeditions in our concerts? And immediately my first response was, well, I didn't know there were any sounds out there. And he said, oh yeah, there's all kinds of sounds. And so eventually I heard some tapes, and it sounded like nature to me. It sounded like a very different form of nature than I'd ever heard. And immediately I thought that Terry Riley could write a piece. And that's basically how this started.
The LA Times says of Sun Rings that it's a masterpiece for the Kronos Quartet. Chorus, electronic sounds from outer space, and lavish visual projections provides music of supreme beauty and spiritual impact. A whole new chapter in the age-old quest for music of the spheres. Space sounds swirl in the air, galaxies carpet the walls and ceiling, and Riley's generous melodies flow through Kronos' four-string instruments. The audience sat in spellbound silence the way spectators do at a space launch. Now, there's a vocal component to what you'll be doing tomorrow night as well. Talk about that.
Well, yes. We'll be performing with the Ars Nova Choir, and there are two movements that feature us with large choir. And within the piece, these moments are amazing, really amazing. And the second one is called Prayer Central, and that features some of the most incredible photos of the sun that I've ever seen, and the choir part is just so incredibly beautiful, and ending in kind of a beautiful chant. And we're going to invite the choir to speak in all the different languages that they know. And Terry's idea is that this piece ends with kind of the sound that you might hear in a large church or a synagogue or a mosque or a place of contemplation and prayer where people are thinking some of their deepest thoughts, and the choir kind of invokes that sound. And recently we did it in Moscow, and it was incredible to hear the major language being Russian, but then you heard other languages of people whispering and kind of chanting from the choir. It was fantastic. So we'll see what we can do.
Well, let's hear an excerpt from Prayer Central.
Alleluia.
music from Sun Rings performed by the Kronos Quartet. David, we started with the choral piece, but then what was that? What did we just hear, the instrumental piece?
That was called Planet Elf Sindori. And you were telling me that that comes from a raga. I didn't know the name of the raga, but certainly Terry Riley has spent many years studying Indian music. In fact, his primary teacher was Pandit Pranath, a great singer.
Sun Rings will be performed tomorrow evening as part of the Eco Arts Festival. Tickets are still available at 440-7666, 440-7666, or coloradomusicfest.org, coloradomusicfest.org. I'm interested, David Harrington, in something you talked about, Kronos' sonic palette, and I've certainly sampled a little bit of that. My theme for alternative radio for many years, you very generously allowed me to use, was composed by a musician from Zimbabwe. You've recorded Thelonious Monk's music, Bill Evans, most recently with the fantastic Indian popular Bollywood playback singer Asha Bhosle. That palette seems to expand and expand.
Well, you know, there are so many wonderful areas to the world of music, and wonderful sounds, and incredible people to get to know and to become, to share the stage with. And so for me, the only problem in being a musician is there's not enough time in life to do everything that would be so incredibly wonderful to be able to do. And I feel very fortunate that Kronos has had the opportunity to work with some amazing musicians. And I feel that in a lot of ways, we're sort of just getting started. And in fact, I should tell your listeners about a concert that you did with us in March at Carnegie Hall, and we called the concert Alternative Radio, Musicians in a Time of War. And we had Howard Zinn with us. And actually the first time Howard ever heard us live was he came to a concert of Sun Rings in Boston. And so there's a lot of connections to our work, and voices and instruments and thoughts.
Yeah, but I'm sure, standard entrepreneurs around the country at, the major venues say, hey, look, our well-heeled, champagne-sipping audience wants to hear Schubert quartets. They want to hear the Beethoven quartets. Why not give them what they want?
Well, a lot of times people don't always have as much time to listen to music as I do. And I mean, it's what I do 20 hours a day, basically, is listen to music and explore the world of music. And so there's a lot of things that even a few years ago I had no idea existed. And so I'm sure there's many people like me around the world that have that are interested in music but just don't have an opportunity to spend a lot of time exploring it themselves. And so one of the things that I feel Kronos can do is share our discoveries and our explorations. And it's wonderful to love a piece of music and have it become a central part of your life, and know where you were the instant you first heard that piece. And I mean, there's a lot of moments like that I have in my life, and that's very important. But I think also it's wonderful to have this sense that music is something that belongs to all of us in the world, and so many hands take part in shaping music, and basically there's so much to learn about, and I feel like that's one thing that Kronos can offer.
Perhaps the most common adjective attached to Kronos is eclectic. Do you embrace that word, or do you find it boring?
Well, For me, I feel like I have the opportunity to be an adventurer and to explore, and I like to share my explorations and my adventures. And I follow my ears, and they've led me into some incredible experiences. And when I hear a voice, or I hear an instrument, or I hear a new composer, every once in a while something resonates inside, and I trust that resonance. I trust it absolutely, and so far it's never failed. That sense of resonance.
One of the musicians that you compose is the recently deceased Hamza Al-Din.
Yeah.
Tell us about Escalade, that piece.
Well, it was Terry Riley that introduced me to Hamza Al-Din. And one thing you find is that wonderful musicians are generally incredibly generous. And Terry is very generous with his knowledge of other musicians and his knowledge of music. And so when he introduced me to Hamza, it was a wonderful moment, and Hamza brought his oud and his tar, which is a beautiful drum that he played, over to San Francisco, and we spent an afternoon, and Hamza played some amazing music for me, and this would have been in about 1985, I think, and Hamza's question was, well, which piece do you think would make a Kronos piece? And I said, well, Hamza, let's start with that one. And that one turned out to be Escalade. And Escalade was, of course, a piece that had been recorded earlier in a different form and has become one of our most popular pieces.
Kronos Quartet performing Hamza Al-Din, Escalade. We're talking to David Harrington, the founder of Kronos. The quartet began in 1973.
1973 in Seattle, Washington.
Seattle, Washington, and that's a very cosmopolitan city in terms of world music. Were you exposed to a lot of different sounds growing up?
Well, I was actually in the summertime at the University of Washington. There was a lot of music going on from all over the world. And I remember going down there and practicing as a teenager at the music building and hearing, I remember peeking in on El Subramaniam, who was in a practice room, and the most amazing violin playing. And I remember hearing Dumasani playing the mbira and various other musicians. So in the late 60s, it was an amazing place for music from all over the world.
What advice would you give to an aspiring musician out there, listening? Well, I'd like to do something like the Kronos Quartet is doing.
I've had trouble
giving advice?
Yeah, I've had trouble giving it and also taking it. But I guess the thing I would suggest, and that I keep reminding myself to do, is always just keep your ears open, because you never know when you might hear something really amazing. And you can be walking down the street and you can see something or hear something that can affect the way you approach life and approach music, and so that the idea of practicing and using your instrument it's a lifetime adventure. It's not something that finishes when you graduate from college or conservatory or whatever, or when you become a member of a different band than you started with or whatever. Music is something that you can have all your life, and it's a wonderful friend.
And along with keeping the ears open, maybe some of those heart valves, too.
Absolutely.
The Kronos Quartet will be performing Sun Rings tomorrow evening at Chautauqua at 7:30, along with the local choral group Ars Nova. And I should also mention that there'll be a pre-concert event at 6:30, which is free at the Chautauqua Community House. There'll be a talk by a NASA scientist, Alexander McDonald, as well as Stephen Bruns, CU professor of music. So this Sun Rings performance tomorrow night is part of the 10-day long Eco Arts Festival here in Boulder, a 10-day program involving 21 different Boulder organizations in an exploration of climate change and the possibilities of a sustainable future. David Harrington, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us this morning on KGNU, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow evening at Chautauqua. We're going to go out with One Earth, One People, One Love. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. On September 12th, 2001, actually Terry Riley had been kind of halted in his writing of Sun Rings by the events of September 11th, and it was hearing Alice Walker on KPFA chanting "One Earth, One People, One Love," and he recorded that, and later that became the kind of mantra for the final movement of Sun Rings. And then it was our visual designer, Willie Williams, who had heard the speech that Neil Armstrong gave, and that later was included also in this final movement of Sun Rings.
I'm David Barsamian. Thanks very much for joining us. We go out now with the final piece, and more on the concert tomorrow evening at coloradomusicfest.org.